And this, of course, are the words of the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, who's making this point. She's admitted white working class kids are being, quote, written off. She called it a national disgrace that so many children aren't getting the support they need. And just listen to the stats on this. You've got just 18.6% of kids from that lower socio-economic demographic, those on school meals, for example, 18.6% of kids pass a key GCSE exam, compared to nearly half of all pupils. I mean, it's way behind. But what's the reason for it? Let's speak with Connor Tomlinson, contributor for Courage Media, a regular with us here on the station. Connor, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. I wish we were discussing something a little bit more cheery, but things
yeah,
really
I know. What's sad about this story, Connor, is you will be more than aware, it's not the first time we've read this headline. You know, it seems to come up almost on an annual basis, and governments sit around and they sort of crunch the numbers and go, oh, yeah, you know, this is absolutely terrible. Phillipson is the latest one to wheel out these same platitudes of, you know, it's an outrage, it's a crime, blah, blah, blah. Nothing changes.
Nothing changes because I think the state is ignorant or unreceptive to the claims that the school system is failing white working class boys in particular. They're the bottom of the pile, apart from Irish Gypsy and Traveller families in repeat polls, as you've said. And if you ever have an advocate for their interests on mainstream media besides this station, you are pilloried as a racist, patriarchal oppressor. And so these boys fall down the ladder while other groups on identity characteristics are elevated, and it results not just in the stats that you've read out there, but the Centre for Social Justice earlier this year put out a paper called Lost Boys, and they found a couple of key stats. 75% of girls are school ready compared to 60% of boys. Girls are outperforming boys at GCSE level by half a grade across all subjects, and by over a grade and a half in their 3 A-level subjects. Female university students outnumber British boys 3 to 2, and for the first time since between 2022 and now, pay for young professionals, women aged 16 to 24, is now higher than that of men's. Before we had the gender pay gap, which was a economic fiction because it conflated types of work and didn't account for part-time pay versus... But in total now, it's inverted. And so we're seeing men being outperformed by women. And if you would like a stable society, if you would like a country where men and women can couple up, form families, stabilize the economy, where in most Western countries, because of the types of work they do, men are net tax contributors across their lifetime, whereas women take out a bit more in tax because of healthcare complications, of course, for having children and the like. If you want a stable society and economy, you should be elevating those men in the education system and in the workplace. Instead, the government are just deaf to their concerns.
Yeah, and it's not helped as well that all of this, and everything you say there, Connor, is absolutely bang on, but it all comes against a backdrop of a rather strange part of the sort of anthropological journey, if you like, where you can't wake up without reading a headline about white guilt or HMRC running an anti-British seminar, kids being told by goodness knows who, I'm pretty sure sometimes teachers, that you've got white privilege, even though you've come from a family where you've got literally zero, nothing whatsoever. There's a narrative that's threading its way through society that clearly really isn't helping this very cause.
No, and I think anthropology is actually right, Ian, because in all of the ideologies that the main political parties believe, whether it's liberalism or the socialism of the Labour government, as Keir Starmer has declared himself, they believe that everyone started from a place roaming around in the wilderness of being free and equal. And so inequality is actually proof of the hidden hand of oppression somewhere. And according to all contemporary narratives, that hand is white and male, because particularly the English, giving the world the Industrial Revolution, the abolition of slavery, the written tradition, a rich history of literature and Christianity across the globe from the empire. Yeah, all those, you know, small, minute achievements that everyone else could have done, I'm sure, if we would have given them the chance. Because they've done all of that, now the men who administered the empire and their descendants, the white working class lads in towns and cities across England now, are avatars of that oppression, and so must be pushed to the bottom of the pile. And now all of these jobs that they're working to fulfill because of the transformation in the economy, in large part thanks to the Industrial Revolution and the internet, has shrunk traditionally male disciplines like manufacturing and agriculture from 40% of the economy about 50 years ago to just 16% of the economy now. And those knowledge economy jobs not only require you to go to university, where lots of white working class boys aren't, and they are punished in admissions because of diversity requirements, but also they're competing with the rest of the world for job opportunities, thanks to remote working, thanks to the repeal of the need to advertise to British people first by Boris Johnson, but also those jobs are going to get cut up to 30% by AI and automation. So unless you're going into the trades, and the education system doesn't encourage you to do that, it encourages you to learn a broad brush of subjects in ways that aren't very ergonomic to boys' inclination towards hands-on learning and rough-and-tumble play, as the person who messaged in earlier said. Unless you're going into the trades early on, it's actually a lot harder to get a head start in the workforce, to earn a living, to have a family, and that's why among boys 15 to 19 now, their suicide rate is treble that of young women, because they're just feeling alienated and not cared for by their society.
Is there an answer to any of this? Because again, you know, I don't really look at Bridget Phillipson. I'm sure she's a perfectly reasonable person, but I don't feel, I don't see have confidence in some seismic shift in the way this country does business in the respect of what we're talking about. I don't imagine it's in Labour's heart to really take this any more seriously, perhaps any more seriously than any other government has. But can we get this back? Can we claw this back, Connor?
So on Bridget Phillipson and Labour taking this seriously, I think this has more to do with the previous issue we've discussed on your show before, Ian, and that is young, particularly white English men's dispossession with liberal democracy than it does with any material factors. They're worried that young men are going to vote for protest parties, essentially, rather than Labour. And so they think that if they just reconfigure the material incentives, and if they listen to people like the failed counter-extremism advisor, Dame Sarah Khan, who insists that the Cabinet Office and the Department for Education implement de-radicalization programs in schools, then everyone will vote for socialism until the heat death of the universe. So I don't trust them to do it. What we can do is a few small things. First of all, stop making young men compete with the entire world for job opportunities. Make sure that you reinstitute the ironically Gordon Brown policy of advertising British jobs first to British workers, reduce mass migration. 74% of the jobs between 2011 and now have gone to foreign workers. So that has just deracinated English towns and cities. Get rid of all the DEI requirements that mean that white men are put to the bottom of the list for hiring despite their competence, and maybe lift the yoke of punitive taxation, it being the highest since the Second World War, so that people can keep more of their earnings, buy a home, have a family, and have a stake in society going forward.
Yeah. Terribly controversial stuff, Connor. Well, I mean, the other way
Very far right, I know.
Yeah, the other way to translate it is just basic fairness, which is what I think you're advocating, and everybody knows that, apart from people that run our country, it seems. Listen, lovely to have you on as ever, Connor. Thank you for your time. Connor Tomlinson, contributor at Courage Media.